groups, how are we all? We've just come off the back of a really hot and sticky Sunday. We are in a brand new series in church, and this week we were looking at the life of Paul, and we were learning some things about the character of Paul, because Paul went through some stuff, and none of us want to go through trials and problems and issues in life, but the fact is, our life goes under some circumstances from now and then. We face problems and we face difficulties. And I wanted to know from this guy, Paul, how did you go through some of the things you went through and not lose his head? And so we picked out 4 points from Paul's life, because in verse 17 of Philippians 3, Paul says this: use my life as a model. Use my life as a pattern to build your walk and your relationship with God. And so in these 4 points that we looked at, looking at the pattern, we find that in point number 1, he was able to face his faults. He was able to look at some of the mistakes that he's made and be honest with himself. You and I, we've got to get to that place where we can be honest. If you want to go somewhere in your car and you want to put the address in your GPS, it first has to locate where you are. Do you know it's the same with God? You've got to be honest with you and honest with God where you want your life to be heading towards. We don't really want to face our faults. In this day and age, we fake it till we make it. We filter it and we disguise it and we hide it, we mask it. We do anything so it looks anything other than the reality of what it is. But you can be a person who goes through life and builds a reputation, or you can be the person who goes through life and does some self-evaluation. One person will go through life looking good, but the other will go through life and be good. So we have to decide, what kind of person do I want to be? The second thing that Paul was able to do, he was able to let go of his past. He didn't have a state of amnesia and forget the things that he'd done. He'd done some pretty horrific things in his past. But that letting go, he meant, listen, all the tears and the drama and the anger and the regret and the remorse doesn't change me. So I'm going to take control of who I am. I'm not going to let my past define me. Successful people learn from their past, but then they move on to their future. They do not let the past define them. But Paul's forgetting of the past was replaced by his goal of moving towards the future. He says, I run into my future. I'm running towards a goal. Remember when we talked about how the goal that he was running towards was to live out his life, every area of his life, in a way that was pleasing to God. Don't cherry pick which parts of your life you want to please and honor God with. Like it's all or nothing. He's an all or nothing kind of God. So make sure you're living a God-honoring life in your coming and your going, in your Christian circles, in your non-Christian circles, in your conversation, in your workplace. Make sure that you are honoring to God. And the last thing that Paul did was he was persistent to be able to finish the race well. While there's breath in my body, I'm going to keep running towards my future. I'm not going to give up. We used the analogy, didn't we, that the only time you're freewheeling in a car is when you're going downhill. And so if you are an active Christian, if you have a walk with God, but you don't feel like you're fighting for something, running and achieving, pressing in and persisting and inquiring more of God, then you are coasting. And anytime you're coasting, you're actually going downhill. It's on a decline. So be a person of consistency and of passion and enthusiasm and run this race called life well. Have an incredible evening. We love you lots.